¿Qué lo que y'all? What's good? Estamos activo. Bienvenido. We are now past 6,300 suscriptores, so big shout out to all y'all that have already subscribed, and if you haven't done it yet, go ahead and do it. Having more fluent sounding Spanish requires two things: pronouncing the letters correctly, which we learned in the first part of this series, and putting the right stress on the words, which we're learning today. I'm going to tell you all the Spanish stress rules first, and then I'll show you all the different accent marks that you'll see on Spanish words. But first, let me remind you what a syllable is. Syllables are the different sound bites that make up a word. So I know you remember snapping and clapping in school. 1 syllable, book. 2 syllables, person. 3 syllables, fantastic. Okay, so you remember. Now, stress is the syllable that you say a little louder than the rest of the word. So for example, fantastic. The stress falls on the second syllable, tas. It's not fantastic and it's not fantastic, fantastic. Imagine if you were having a conversation with somebody and they said fantastic. You'd be like, You might also start to question how well that person knows English, and that exact same thing happens when we use the wrong stress in Spanish. English has 7 different stress rules that you had to learn at some point, but gracias a Dios, Spanish only has 3 stress rules and they're super easy. If a word ends with a vowel, or the letters S or N, then you put the stress on the second to last syllable. So if there's only 2 syllables, you put the stress on the first one. Mesa, noche, padres. If there's 3 syllables, you put the stress on the second one. Cuchara, gigante, amaban. If there's 4 syllables, you'll stress the third one. Pasaporte, and so on. If rule number 1 doesn't apply, then you put the stress on the last syllable. So in other words, if the word doesn't end in a vowel, N, or S, then you stress the last syllable. Señor, alrededor, estudiar. And the easiest rule of all, if there's an accent mark, then you put the stress on the syllable where the accent mark is. The accent mark is basically saying, hey, this word ain't gonna sound like it normally would, so I'm gonna just tell you where to put the stress. I'm gonna show you 3 accented palabras, but I'm gonna hide the accent marks. This is what these palabras would sound like if we were to follow those first 2 rules. Inglés. This ends in S, so we put the stress on the second to last syllable, which happens to be the first one. Árbol. This doesn't end in a vowel, N, or S, so we'd put the stress on that last syllable. Sábado. This one also ends in a vowel, so we'd put the stress on the second to last syllable. But these palabras have accent marks, so those rules don't matter, and instead, these are pronounced inglés, árbol, sábado. This is why it's so important to use accent marks when a word is supposed to have them, because otherwise it completely changes the pronunciation. So as you learn new palabras in Spanish, make sure you pay attention to which ones have accent marks and learn that accent mark as if it was a letter in that word. Don't look at it as something optional, because really it ain't. Okay, so here are the different accent marks that you might see and how to understand them. So Spanish only has 3 accent marks, and you already know those. There's the accent mark over ñ that gives it that ñ sound. There's the accent mark we learned about in this lesson that tells you where to put the stress on the word, and you'll only see this over a vowel. And then there's the double dots over U, which tells you to pronounce it like ue. You'll see this occasionally in words like vergüenza. So it's got that ue sound, vergüenza. And that's all there is to Spanish word stress. So you now know everything that you need to know to be able to pronounce anything or at least sound it out in Spanish. So for our next and very last lesson in this pronunciation series, we're going to put your knowledge to the test with another reading from un libro that's a little bit more advanced and has bigger and accented palabras. So keep practicing and I'll see you in the next lesson. Gracias por estar aquí. Hasta la próxima.